There are moments in life when a phone stops ringing, not because it's broken, but because someone chose silence. A sister who no longer answers, a father whose name feels heavy to say out loud, a family home that exists only in memory. When people hear the phrase cutting off family, they often rush to judgment. They assume anger, cruelty, or selfishness. But what if the truth is quieter, deeper, and far more complicated than it looks from the outside? This story isn't about hatred, it's about survival. It's about people who reached a point where staying connected hurt more than letting go. The psychology of people who cut off their family is rarely discussed with honesty. We talk about family loyalty, unconditional love, and forgiveness, but we don't always talk about emotional abuse, chronic neglect, boundary violations, or the slow erosion of self-worth. For some, walking away isn't an act of rebellion, it's an act of self-preservation. Imagine growing up feeling unseen, unheard, or constantly judged. Imagine being told who you should be, how you should feel, and what you owe others just because you share blood. Over time, that pressure builds. The mind learns to associate family with anxiety, guilt, and emotional exhaustion. And one day, a difficult question appears. What if peace only comes with distance? People who choose estrangement often carry deep internal conflict. They grieve the family they wished they had, not just the one they lost. They question themselves late at night. Am I overreacting? Am I a bad person? Should I try again? Psychology shows that this decision is rarely impulsive. It usually follows years of emotional labor, broken boundaries, and unmet needs. Cutting off family is often the final step after every other option has failed. But society doesn't make room for this kind of truth. We celebrate reconciliation stories, but we rarely listen to those who walked away to heal. We don't see the therapy sessions, the panic attacks, or the quiet relief that comes with choosing mental health over tradition. We only see the absence, and we judge it. In this video, we're going to explore what really happens inside the minds of people who cut off their family, the trauma, the guilt, the strength, and the fear. And just when you think you understand why someone would make such a painful choice, there's one psychological factor that changes everything, something most people never consider, but once you hear it, you'll never see family estrangement the same way again. That factor often begins quietly, long before the final cutoff ever happens. It starts in childhood, in small moments that don't look dramatic from the outside. A joke that cuts too deep, a boundary crossed and brushed off as family behavior, an apology that never comes. Over time, these moments stack up, and the brain learns a painful pattern. Love is conditional, and safety is never guaranteed. As the years pass, the person grows older, but the emotional rules inside the family stay the same. They're still expected to explain themselves, to tolerate disrespect, to stay silent for the sake of peace. When they try to speak up, they're labeled difficult, sensitive, or ungrateful. The message is subtle but constant. Your feelings matter less than keeping the family image intact. That's where the conflict deepens, because humans are wired for connection, but also for self-protection. Psychologically, this creates a split inside the mind. On one side is loyalty, history, shared memories, and the fear of being alone. On the other is the growing awareness that every interaction comes at a cost. Anxiety before phone calls, a tight chest during holidays, the need to emotionally recover after every visit. These are not signs of weakness, they are signals. The nervous system remembers what the heart tries to excuse. Many people in this situation don't want to cut off their family. They fantasize about a version where things are different, where conversations feel safe, where boundaries are respected, where love doesn't hurt. They give second chances, third chances, and countless silent chances. They try therapy, self-blame, forgiveness, and distance that's temporary. Each attempt carries hope, and each disappointment makes the eventual decision heavier. What complicates it further is guilt. Society teaches that family is forever, that walking away is failure. So even as the person feels themselves shrinking, they stay. They show up, they endure, until one day something shifts, not an explosion, but a realization. The realization that staying is slowly erasing who they are, that healing can't happen in the same environment that caused the wounds. This is where the mystery deepens, because from the outside, the cutoff looks sudden, a blocked number, an unanswered message, a silence that feels cruel to those left behind. But inside, it's the end of a long internal war, a final boundary drawn not in anger, but in exhaustion. And still, the tension remains unresolved, because cutting off family doesn't bring instant peace. It brings questions, loneliness, doubt, a strange mix of grief and relief that's hard to explain. The person wonders if distance will finally lead to healing, or if it will open a wound that never fully closes. And beneath all of that is one unsettling thought that keeps returning, quietly and persistently, waiting to be faced. That thought often shows up in quiet moments when the world slows down and there's no distraction left. What if I'm the problem? What if walking away proves everything they said about me was true? This doubt becomes its own subplot, running alongside the decision itself. Even after distance is created, the emotional bond doesn't disappear. The mind replays old conversations, searching for clarity, rewriting scenes, imagining different outcomes. Closure feels just out of reach. Meanwhile, the family left behind has their own story. From their perspective, the cutoff feels like betrayal. They talk about confusion, shock, and hurt. They focus on the silence, not the years leading up to it. In many cases, they don't see themselves as harmful. They remember providing food, shelter, and tradition. They struggle to understand emotional boundaries because no one ever taught them. This gap in understanding turns the conflict into something deeper than right or wrong. It becomes a clash of emotional realities. The person who left feels caught between two identities. To the outside world, they are independent, strong, choosing mental health. But internally, they are still the child who wanted approval, safety, and love. Family estrangement doesn't erase attachment, it complicates it. Holidays become heavy. Simple questions like, "Are you visiting home?" trigger a pause, a calculation, a decision about how much truth to reveal. Another layer of tension comes from memory. Not all moments were bad. There were laughs, shared meals, moments that felt real and warm. These memories blur the lines and make the decision feel less certain. Trauma rarely exists without contrast, and that contrast can keep someone emotionally tethered long after physical distance is created. The brain struggles to hold both truths at once, that love existed and harm did too. Friends and outsiders often add pressure without realizing it. Advice comes easily. They're still your family. Time heals everything. You'll regret this one day. Each comment plants another seed of doubt. The person begins to wonder if healing requires reconciliation or if peace is allowed to exist without forgiveness. Psychology tells us that unresolved trauma doesn't disappear just because time passes. Avoidance can feel like relief, but it can also hide unfinished emotional work. As this inner conflict grows, the question shifts. It's no longer just about the family that was left behind. It becomes about identity, boundaries, and self-worth. Who am I without this role? Who do I become if I never go back? The tension tightens here because the answer isn't clear. And buried beneath all these layers is one fear that hasn't been fully named yet. The fear that choosing yourself might mean losing something you can never replace. As time passes, the silence starts to feel louder than any argument ever did. Days turn into months, and every important moment carries an echo of absence. Birthdays arrive with mixed emotions. Success feels incomplete without someone to share it with, while struggles feel heavier without a familiar voice. This is where the psychological tension peaks, because distance protects the mind, but it also tests the heart. The person begins to notice small cracks forming in their certainty. A missed call left unheard, a message typed but never sent. Curiosity mixes with fear. Have things changed? Would reaching out undo all the healing? The nervous system reacts before logic can step in. The body remembers the pain even when the mind tries to romanticize the past. Trauma bonds don't break cleanly. They pull, stretch, and resist separation. At the same time, pressure from the outside intensifies. Relatives ask questions with concern wrapped in judgment. Life is short, you'll regret this one day. These words linger longer than intended, especially during quiet nights. Guilt becomes heavier, not because the decision was wrong, but because the consequences are real. Estrangement doesn't just cut ties, it reshapes identity, routines, and future expectations. Inside, a critical moment is forming. The person starts to ask a different question. What if staying disconnected costs more than reconnecting?